backup sound.
Art will sit in this chair, maybe face it. What do you want to do? Yeah,
I like this.
like this. Okay.
That'll be really nice. And I think we should just. So, I can't remember, were you one of the people who knows Shanna? Marilla?
No.
No, okay, you don't know.
I mean, I've met a lot of people. I don't always remember.
She turned me on to DREM. She's like
Oh?
she's been doing like the eviction task force stuff.
Well, she hasn't come to many meetings, I don't think.
I
has
think
she?
she's come to a couple. She's got like real long dark hair. Really pretty girl.
Oh, I think I know who she is, yes.
Yeah, really perky.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Your chair.
Well, I'm getting out, I was getting out of your all's way.
No,
No,
you
you
guys
should
go
come
ahead.
sit
Go on.
down and
Come on. Your pilot is not very.
I won't use anything that you guys don't want me to
He
use.
doesn't care.
No.
Mm-mm.
And obviously it's all your footage too, so.
Adrian disappeared.
I think she's camera shy. I think she wants to get in the act. She's got a lot of background on Detroit.
Yeah, she seems like a real interesting person.
Adrian?
Maybe you should come get in the shine,
No,
Adrian.
it's fine. You too.
Well, Rick, no, it's
I'm listening.
there's something right there for you.
Huh?
I bought something for you right here.
Oh, really? Oh, yum. Yum, yum. Thank you.
Don't tell anybody.
Let me just get the focus on that.
You know, Arcos, anytime you want to go there, call us
Okay.
and we'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We go there a lot.
Yeah, I was giving the wrong name to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good place.
All right.
Now, actually, you know, I live in Detroit,
Yeah.
but we also have this place here. And we made this her official residence, but my official residence is in Detroit.
Whereabouts?
On the river. I'm at a place called the River House.
Cool. Where is that? I live at Iron and Jefferson.
Iron.
Iron, like Mount Elliott.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
near
right
Mount.
there.
You're 5 minutes away from me.
Right
now.
next to
Right.
Jeffersonian, you know what
Yeah,
Jeffersonian is?
yeah.
9,000.
Yeah, and I actually live like across the street from Reverend Williams.
Where's he?
He's at
Charles Williams?
Yeah.
Where is he?
He's at the Rivertown Lofts or something.
Rivertown House.
Okay, you are west of me. I'm past Van Dyke.
Oh yeah, you're further east of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the east.
Yeah. So, I kind of just want to hear like your stories first.
Okay. Well, you're the director. You know, tell us when you want to start talking.
Co-director. Talk anytime.
You're filming us right now? Okay. I'm John Telford. I'm a native Detroiter. My most recent position was as pro bono superintendent of the Detroit Public Schools. And I am a lifelong educator in Detroit and the Detroit metropolitan area. I have written 1,000 newspaper columns. I'm an electronic media commentator. I've had radio shows, television shows. Right now, my show is on WCHB every Sunday afternoon at 4:30, News Talk 1200. And sitting with me is my old quarter miler from Detroit Southeastern High School, the Reverend Arkels C. Brooks Jr. And I will let him introduce himself to you.
I'm also a native Detroiter, raised on the Near East Side. Used to be called the North End, then moved to the Southeast Side. Graduated Southeastern High School, went to school at Southern Illinois University, and then did graduate work at Wayne State in education. And I've had a mixed professional background in business, pharmaceutical sales, insurance, banking, and my own businesses. And then I've also been an educator also. And I pastor a church on the east side of Detroit, and very much involved in Detroit.
What's it called?
Gospel Chapel of Detroit, yes. And I do also teach as an associate instructor with Emmaus Bible College, and active in civil rights activities, and advocate for justice. Involved in a lot of community organizations that try to help the underprivileged and underrepresented.
Yeah, he's been doing that his whole life, actually, and so have I. Arkels and I go back, well, I coached him in 1961, so how long ago was that? This is the year 2014, so
It's about 53 years.
he's getting up there.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Getting up there. And during my time, my most recent time with the Detroit Public Schools, the budget was in deficit. But the reason it was in deficit was because of a state takeover that occurred in the year 1999. In the year 1999, the Detroit Public Schools enjoyed a $93 million surplus, and their test scores were at the state midpoint and rising. But right around that time, the voters of Detroit had passed a $1.5 billion bond issue. And Governor Engler, John Engler, was the governor of the state at the time, and his cohorts were looking at that money with hungry eyes. So they took over the Detroit Public Schools, despite the fact that we were outscoring districts around us that had far fewer social problems than we had. They took us over basically because they could. And that was in 1999. 10 years later, an emergency manager who had been appointed by the governor left the school district behind when he left with a $327 million deficit. And the Detroit Public School children's test scores were the worst in the United States of America. Whereas before this so-called reform movement occurred, they had been at the state midpoint and rising despite their many social problems. So I have to submit to anyone who will listen that if you want to call that reform, I would hate to see deformity.
Yeah.
What on earth did they do to make it that bad?
Well, they squandered a lot of our money. They misspent some of it. They spent some of it on high-priced consultants, friends sometimes of the leadership people who had been appointed by the Republican leadership, basically in the state of Michigan. And of course now the city is in trouble. The city has an emergency manager. The schools have an emergency manager, which they never should have had. Hopefully, since we have some lawsuits to overturn this Public Act 436, which was a replacement law for Public Act 4, which was the law that created the emergency manager, we will be able to get the city and the schools back on an even keel. And there are lawsuits right now in the courts to try to make that happen. So I could be back superintendent, after Public Act 436 is declared unconstitutional, which it is because it's a replacement law for a law that the voters of Michigan voted to defeat. So
That strikes me as something that happens a lot where when you get a Republican in control, they like to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on consulting or administrative costs. I mean, what is that?
well, there's a lot of collusion going on, and there's a lot of corruption going on. Much of it is behind the scenes. We don't. It's kind of hard to follow the bouncing ball because it goes behind the curtain sometimes. Yeah. But we're fighting it. We have no choice, and we'll continue to do that.
One of the things that concerns me is when you see that we have an absence of money and budgeting, supposedly, how that we can tear down schools completely and rebuild brand new schools when there's supposed to be a lack of funds to even, in some schools, they'd have adequate toilet paper, adequate textbooks, lighting, these sort of things. But we see the schools being torn down and they come back under the new charter school rules, and they're controlling them, which really is diluting the public schools' effectiveness in terms of being able to compete with the facilities. Ironically enough, we're seeing the public schools, many of them, their grades for the young people is actually scoring better than the charter schools because the charter schools open the door to entrepreneurs who are non-educators. And as a result of that, we're seeing a lot of people have, and I won't name any names, but sports people and people who are successful in business, and they're trying to run the schools as a business. And there are some business principles that should be there, but basically educators should be in charge of that and using the business entrepreneurs and their expertise as consultants to help them make sure that we're keeping things intact. Because there's a great lack of accountability in some of the spending, which would justify having business consultants, but they should not be in charge or allowed to own schools and run it for profit, because that's not the principle behind education. So I'm kind of allergic to that because I haven't seen an increase in productivity in our children, particularly in the inner cities. But I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who are making good money running schools. So we need to really be concerned about that because the children aren't getting educated out of these schools. Many of these schools are being having a free run, and they're not being held accountable as they should be. So I don't see any improvement. Having been in education for 45 years myself, I haven't seen any great improvement. And Michigan being one of the number one schools in the nation that has the charter schools and schools of profit, most other states looking at Michigan say we don't want that in our state. So I think it's only maybe about 3 or 4 states nationwide that really embrace that concept.
I have a lot of questions about that, but you have to say.
Well, they're systematically tearing down our schools for a variety of reasons. Most of it is about money. You have to follow the money, and then you can draw a lot of conclusions. When the emergency managership was the yoke of emergency managership was placed around the necks of Detroiters, one of the first things that the emergency managership did, in fact, it was the second emergency manager, Mr. Roy Roberts, who was a former vice president with General Motors, and he's the emergency manager that I had to work with. He gave away 15 of our schools to an agency called the EAA, Educational Achievement Authority. And those were schools, bricks, mortar, equipment that belonged to the taxpayers, and yet he just gave them away to this Educational Achievement Authority that had been created by Governor Snyder, a Republican governor, who wanted to start a new school district. But that school district has been a totally failed experiment. We need to get those schools back. We need to get the Detroit Public Schools back under the aegis and the leadership of its elected school board. We finally do have a very good elected school board, and if I do say so myself, I'm the superintendent they appointed, so they had a good school superintendent. But we're still fighting that battle.
What do you, I want to go back to this running schools as entrepreneurial endeavors. Can we talk a little bit more about that and like specific examples and maybe even how that's interfacing with this sort of ridiculous rhetoric around Detroit Future City and the DGC? I mean, I don't know if they're related
No.
or not, but it seems similar. Like, and then this whole AmeriCorps thing is very sort of opportunistic. It seems.
Well, now, when I was applying for my doctorate in education, Wayne State had to write a roll of paper on should schools be run as businesses, and it's kind of a catch-22. Business principles, yes, but not run by principals, by entrepreneurs, basically, because their philosophy is different. The philosophy of education is different from the philosophy of business, which is to make money, make a profit. And schools basically are nonprofit, but they're profitable because there's no profession that can exist without teachers and without education. But what I have seen is that there are those who are able to get charter schools, first of all, had the finances and the principle to establish the schools. And because it takes a while before the schools start getting the funding to support the schools. So basically, it took people who had money already to get the schools, get them going. So a person who was an educator, a teacher, or principals who had the ability but didn't have the finances could not get a charter school because they couldn't afford to go through that float time before they started getting the state money. So that opened it up to those who have money but not have expertise in education, nor were they really that sensitive to the needs of education. The difference is this. If you're running a business like Ford Motor Company, we can start in September and say by December, we're going to have this vehicle, and it's going to have this specification, and it's going to do this and this. You can't do that with human minds. We can present the information, we can make them thirsty, but each individual has got to learn for themselves. You cannot put a time limit on that per se. That's what entrepreneurs are doing. They think that it's numbers by objective. You do this by October, you do this, and this will happen. That does not happen with human minds. So you have to, sometimes the things I have experienced as an instructor, an administrator, is that it may be 2 years later, a kid come back to me and say, I finally got what you were trying to tell me. I was taught in juvenile system, come back and say, Mr. Brooks, I finally see what you meant. I can't say and guarantee that the person starts with me in September is going to be here at this point in June. I can say we will give this information, and we will cover this information by this time, and we will try to motivate them to be turned on to learning. But without the family backing us, which we've seen that the family has really been just torn apart, we don't have parents that are going to back kids up. We can do all the electronics we want at school, but if the parents do not follow up, we don't have the family backing us. So we get back to the economic implication. We have unemployment. We have people leaving the city. The families are really broken up. So we don't have school doesn't have the support. School is only one institution. The family is the basis for the government, for the schools, for churches, whatever. And if the family is not intact, the church is not going to be intact. The schools, and what do we produce? The type of politicians that don't have the integrity, the ethics that a family can only give. But that's my understanding of it.
Why aren't the families intact?
Basically because we've taken out of schools. I was told when I was teaching in the juvenile system, you don't tell kids what's right or wrong. If they say I have this feeling, you don't say there's a right or a wrong. We take away absolute right. Then you take away your governing principles. It's almost as though the system does not want us to teach ethics and morality. You can actually see that being taken care of. And I'm not just talking about prayer out of school. I don't care about taking prayer out of school. But we don't have families that are teaching principles that God-fearing or ethical or moral. It's almost like whatever you want to do is fine if that's your opinion and that's your position, and that's being permeated into our children. So then, so if you don't have principles in the family, how are you going to have a politician who has principles of right and wrong? The principal things be going through our country is get away with whatever you can, and if you make a profit, that justifies the means of how you got that profit. And that's what I'm seeing. Even in young kids, I'm seeing that.
So you think it's sort of a characteristic of living in a capitalist society?
Yes. It's the fruit of us saying the most important thing is to get as much as you can by any means possible, and that justifies it.
I'm going to bring this guy on my radio show again because he said it all. I mean, and Arkels and I are both products of the Detroit Public Schools in better days.
I'm proud of it.
Me before Arkels. You know, I came out of Detroit Northwestern and Detroit Denby High School. He came out of Southeastern High School, where I was his track coach. And then he went on to Southern Illinois University. I went on to Wayne State University on a track scholarship. And he was also in the sport of track and field. But that wasn't, I mean, we were academically oriented, and we were academically grounded by a fine school district that now has seen better days. And when I was the school superintendent, which was only for a period of a little under a year, I was trying my best to bring back some of the things that we had lost. But I was facing emergency managership and an emergency manager whose ideas were diametrically opposed to mine because he had been appointed by the governor, and he gave away 15 of our schools rather than reconstituting them, improving them. He just gave them away, and that was a disaster, of course, for those schools. They became overrun by gangs. Some of the teachers were Teach for America kids who really didn't know our community, and disastrous results have occurred, and we're still in the middle of that crisis, and we're trying to rectify it.
Tell me how, like, what is the logic that enables an emergency manager to give up its best resource, its better resources? What, like, I mean, and I have some ideas about systematic racism, or but I don't know.
Well, he just did. I mean, I think he was under orders to do this from the governor. He gave away his school, the school he graduated from. He gave away my school, the school I graduated from, and also gave away some schools I coached in. I mean, 6, 7 of our high schools just given away. A brand new one, Mumford High School, $50.5 million school. That state-of-the-art school just gave it away.
Just like you were saying, Dr. Telford, Southeastern High School. When I graduated, I went to Southern Illinois University on a scholarship. To say that you graduated from Detroit, that was it was the first, second, or third always in terms of its recognition nationwide. The Board of Education of Detroit. But I look at Southeast, they spent millions of dollars to renovate that school, make it a high-tech school, and now they're talking about closing it. When they came in, we don't have money. We renovate a school, we make it a state-of-the-art, and then we close schools, or we tear them down and bring in the EAA schools because they're controlled. That's different monies. Because now you get money to fix the school up, you get money to tear the school down, you get money to build a new school, same contractors. Where's the money coming from? And why are people motivated to fix something up, spend much money, tear it down, and build a new school? Money is flowing somewhere, and it wasn't just flowing at the county building. I'm very suspect of where is this money coming from where there is no money.
Where is it coming from in terms of the EEA? Like, where is that money coming from?
That is the question. Maybe Dr.
Yeah, well,
answer.
there are foundations that have been propping the EAA up, but the foundation grant that comes from the state also goes to those students. I see it as a systematic attempt to basically destroy the Detroit Public Schools, and we're fighting tooth and nail to stop them from doing that.
So all these entrepreneurial endeavors can come and take over.
That's what's been happening. That's what's been happening, and we're doing our best to stop it.
What are you doing?
Lawsuits, basically. The Sugar Law Center, a group called Keep the Vote No Takeover that's headed up by a social activist named Helen Moore, and the school board itself, is engaged in that lawsuit, among other individuals and entities and groups.
Can you talk to me more about the groups engaged in the lawsuit and what you do to file, like the?
You'd
more
have
the
to talk to a
technical
lawyer.
stuff?
Yeah, it's not something that I'm not familiar with the
Okay.
specifics, but I do know that I understand the Constitution, and I know that you don't put back a law that the voters of Michigan voted to defeat. They voted to overturn that law. So to put it back in, we have an unlawful law. Is what we have. And hopefully, the Civil Rights Department and the United States Attorney General will come in here and declare it unconstitutional and give the schools back to the elected school board. That's what we're trying to make happen, and it's been a long fight. And unfortunately, the schools got enmeshed in this whole situation with the municipality, which is also under attack. By these corporate crocodiles, these corporate interests, and the schools got caught in that whirlpool. They're not really giving the school situation as much attention as needs to be given. I'm in a group called Detroiters Resisting Emergency Management. I'm also, do I have it? I guess I'm also involved with a group called Team for Justice. Have been for a long time. Arkels was president of that group for a while, and so was I, off and on. But we are engaged, along with several other groups, the National Action Network, which is headed up by the Reverend Charles Williams and also Sam Riddle, and we're fighting an uphill fight, but we're not going to quit until we win. Because the alternative is a destroyed school district and children whose future has been compromised.
Can you talk to me a little bit about maybe your methodology for grassroots organizing and how you interface with all these with the NAN and the how they all? And are there...
DREM and Arkels. Have you been to a DREM meeting yet? No, okay. I've been trying to get him to come to a DREM. Anyway, it's Detroiters Resisting Emergency Management, and it's kind of a clearinghouse group for the other groups: National Action Network, Team for Justice, Keep the Vote No Takeover, Call 'Em Out. That's Agnes Hitchcock's group. There are a bunch of groups that are of a like mind, but they're doing things in rather disorganized, separate fashion. And the clearinghouse group now, or at least is trying to become the clearinghouse group, is the DREM group. I like to call it DREAM, Detroiters Resisting Emergency Management.
What is that like, and how do you become the clearinghouse group?
Well, by bringing the leaders of the other groups in and planning.
Have you talked to Charles Williams at all about his ideas for the King Solomon Church? And
Very briefly. I've been over there a couple of times. In fact, it's right in my backyard where I grew up. I grew up on 16th Street. It's over on 14th Street. It's a couple blocks east of where I grew up. And I have spoken with him and many of the other leaders too. I've had some of them on my radio show. I've had the mayor on my radio show. There's been a lot of disagreement as to whether or not the mayor is controlled by the governor. I happen to believe that the mayor is not controlled by the governor emotionally. I mean, I think he's a populist. I was a mayoral candidate, and when I did not survive the primary, some of my supporters were upset with me because they wanted me to support Mr. Napoleon in the mayoral runoff. Mr. Napoleon is the sheriff of Wayne County, and a friend, and I think he would have been a fine mayor. but I happen to believe that that Mr. Duggan has got some acuity that perhaps Mr. Napoleon does not have. So it was a narrow choice, but I elected to go with Mr. Duggan, and I elected to go with him actually after he reached out to me and asked me to come with him, which I did. I didn't do it initially. Initially, I said, you're wasting your time. I'm supporting Napoleon. But I'll tell you what, let's talk. And you come on my radio show and you say that you're not the governor's stooge, and you say that you support grassroots Detroiters, and you denounce the EAA because he had been on the EAA's board. He said unwittingly. I didn't think he would, but he came on my radio show. He denounced the EAA. He said, I'm not the governor's stooge. He said all the things that I asked him to say. So I ended up supporting him, and I really believe this man has the heart of a populist. I think he's going to surprise some people the way Lyndon Johnson did back in 1963, and the way Earl Warren did. He was a Republican who was on the Supreme Court. So I cast my lot with Mr. Duggan, and hopefully once we get this emergency manager out of there, he can start doing some things to reform the city, and hopefully I can get back into the school district and start doing the things that I already planned to do. I had 23 goals, and I was going to reform the schools. But I never really got the chance to do it because I got fired by the emergency manager as soon as that law kicked in. That is an illegal law.
And what about Mr. Duggan's affiliations with DEGC and all of these other corporate interests that seem like they're really on the side of the EA?
Well, Mr. Duggan has publicly stated that he believes the EAA needs to be dismantled. So I think that was a pretty radical statement on his part, and I think it indicated clearly that he is not part of this conservative movement. But he has to be careful. Right now, he can't make a move without the permission of the emergency manager, Mr. Kevin Orr, who of late was a member of the Jones Day law firm. There's just so much finagling and skullduggery going on. It's as I've said, it's hard to follow the bouncing ball.
What about Gilbert, though? Like, he's so aligned with Gilbert.
Well,
I mean, doesn't that
Gilbert could be doing some good things. I don't have any objection to fixing up the city, and I don't believe my personal opinion is that the capitalist system is on its last legs, not just in Detroit or Michigan or the United States, but in the world. I think that I think we're moving to another phase. But in the meantime, Michigan is ground zero for this corporate takeover, and Detroit is the target, and the schools have been the bullseye. We were the tip of the spear. They attacked us first. They took us over first. As I've said, we did not need to be taken over. It was an unwarranted takeover. We had a $93 million surplus. The test scores were at the state midpoint, and they were rising. We were outscoring Ferndale, we were outscoring Hazel Park, we were outscoring Dearborn school districts, despite all our social problems. And Lord knows we've got them in a big city. We've got more social problems than the other three communities that I just mentioned have combined. And yet, our kids were doing right at the state midpoint. And the scores were rising. 10 years later, you've got an emergency manager leave behind a $327 million deficit. Test scores are the worst in the country. Is that reform?
One of the things I was noticing on the news last night, they were talking about 5 other states, or 5 other cities, I should say, that have to really be careful because Detroit is like a prototype. The nation is watching what's happening here with this bankruptcy, the emergency manager there. I think Chicago was mentioned as, are they going to be next? And I think there were 4 other major cities last night. I didn't get the whole.
They're next. Chicago's next.
And so as Detroit goes in so many other ways, the country goes. Detroit is still a premier city in this nation. And much of the economy and things that happen in this country, you can look at Detroit. and see, because Detroit was a premier city when I graduated from the school system, and it's still a major financial center for this. As much as they want to knock Detroit, the automobile industry still makes this country go around, and a lot of technology built around it, computers, medicine, whatever you want to say. It's still a premier city. And I think we have an underlying power struggle, and it's almost like a greed thing with the capitalism in terms of anything for money without having the foresight to see that it's like a parasitic relationship. You can only drain the host so long before if you kill the host, then you kill yourself. And hopefully the greed that we're seeing as a result of the takeovers and what's going on in terms of the school system and the money that's being siphoned off that should be properly used, and we use money where we want to fit our own agenda, is hurting everybody. And it's only so long before it not only hurts the host, but it hurt the parasites themselves. But they're now looking and saying that I think at least 5 other major cities that are looking at what's going on in Detroit, and they're saying they're next.
No, they are. There's no question.
And so that's
They're already going after
something.
the teachers' pensions
Yeah.
in Chicago. And if Detroit thinks that their pensions are going to be sacrosanct, they're totally wrong. And city workers' pensions, of course, are under attack here in the city of Detroit.
And these are major cities that
That's
think
right.
I think it was on Channel 2 last night. And I think it's Chicago, it may even been New York. I just forget. And I was surprised because it flashed on so fast. These major cities that are threatened as a result of what is happening in Detroit. So there's a definite mindset that's going on in this country that is saying, whatever way we can find money and make money, let's do it at any expense. Because you think that those who have the means and have the great majority of wealth in this country, they'll get their kids educated. They'll have their kids with jobs. They can take care, put their kids in the best schools. So they really don't care about the public schools and really charter schools. Charter schools is, in my opinion, my experience, and looking at it now, is one of the biggest farces in this that's occurred in this country in the education system.
Absolutely, they don't play by the same rules. They're profit oriented. You don't treat children like cars coming off an assembly line. They're human beings, and the idea is to educate them, not to make money off their backs. And that's what's been happening to our kids here in Detroit. And Detroit, again, as I said, is the bullseye, with the Detroit Public Schools being the very center of that bullseye. And it's a shame.
How do you fund the city? Like how do we fund the city without these corporate interests?
Well, I've talked to Mr. Duggan about that, and I think the city itself needs to become entrepreneurial. It needs to become job friendly. We need to create industries that we ourselves manage as a municipality, or that are friendly to us and work through us. We've got that great strait there. We call it a river. It's the Detroit River, but we could do all kinds of things with that river. We could put container tankers and ship the goods that are created in the Tri-County area all over the country, all over the world. We could start a fishery industry. There are so many things. I mean, we've got to think out of the box to bring the city back. We can't 100% depend on the automobile industry, because the automobile industry is getting competition that it never had when it started out. It was an American industry basically then. It no longer is.
But so, what's the difference between municipal ownership of industry and private ownership of industry when there's going to be somebody in power, regardless of whether it's a city business or a traditional business?
Well, there's no reason why why the city can't be the business owner itself. Let's start bottling our water. We've got the best water in the world, the Great Lakes. Let's start bottling our water and selling it all over the world, all over the country. Let's start doing that. We've got furniture industries here. We've got food industries. We've got We've got all kinds of products, and certainly we've got a lot of vacant land too. You know, let's turn some of that to farmland and let it be community farming. There are so many things that have not been tried, and if Mr. Duggan is given a chance, I think he may be willing to undertake some of these things and really think out of the box. And I got in a lot of trouble for supporting him. Let me tell you, my own constituency and many of my friends see me as a turncoat. That's one of the reasons why I'm not getting paid by Mr. Duggan. You know, because they'll say, well, you know, you sold out, but I didn't sell out. You know, I'm his senior advisor on education, but I'm not getting paid for it. Matter of fact, I didn't get paid to be school superintendent either. I did that pro bono for almost a year because I care about this city. I grew up in this city. You know, kindergarten through, I mean, cradle to grave. You know, I'm a Detroiter, and I want to bring the city back for the kids. I want to get the drug trade out of here. I want to get the drug dealers out of here, and I want to provide a good education for our kids so that they can get jobs where they can make a decent wage and raise a family. You know, it's just so upsetting what they're doing to us. You know, I'm 78 years old. I was going to sit in a rocking chair and, you know, pass the baton to guys like Arkels, but he's getting up there too. You know, he's 70. You know, so we've got to. You know, I got back in harness because no one else was doing it. You know, I saw much of my life's work being overturned. So I'm angry about it, and I'm coming back trying to fight the battle again.
Mm-hmm. One of the good things I would like to see in the Detroit system now, since we're in a more technological world, is seeing the schools prepare kids for actual jobs too. Everybody's not going to go to college.
Right.
You know, many college graduates, particularly in Michigan, you come out and you can't find a job. But there are jobs in rebuilding the city, labor jobs. Nothing wrong with that.
Look at the water mains have been breaking. You know,
Yeah,
so get
yeah.
the kids out there and fix those.
Yeah.
And we've got a governor who says we've got how many millions of dollars of surplus?
Yeah.
Let's spend those millions of dollars putting kids to work and fix these water mains.
And teaching them, giving them apprenticeships like
Right.
the millwrights and plumbing,
Absolutely.
electrical. Focus Hope was a very great pioneer.
They're great, but they can't do it all. Focus Hope can't
Right.
do it all.
So that's what I'm saying. We've got the resources.
Yeah.
Everybody's not going to college. Everybody need not go to college. But there are technological jobs that certainly will make much more than a teacher, much more than a lot of vocations that are good. Some people just like working with their hands. I went to college because I wanted to go into science and medicine. But certainly millwright, a plumber, electrician, sanitation workers, there and many industries. So one of the explanations was saying about they not hiring more Detroiters, they couldn't find basic laborers. Well, basic laborers still need skills. So if somehow the school can incorporate some of these technological jobs, apprenticeship type of jobs, then you'll start increasing the tax base because these people are living in Detroit, they're making a good salary, and that's where your taxes are going to come from. They're going to buy homes, and we need to hold people accountable for their neighborhood somehow. But Detroit's probably got as many vacant lands enough as some small cities. So maybe farming would be something that we need to be doing ourselves, raising organic food. But we certainly need to look at our educational system and think in terms of reading, writing, and math, of course, and then some of these vocational skills getting to the kids so they can make a living.
Computer skills too.
Right, and these vocational skills can work anywhere. You don't have to be right here. You can go anywhere in the country or the world.
No, we want them to stay
And work.
here.
We want them to stay here.
We want them to stay here and rebuild Detroit.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's happening. We're losing a lot of our kids.
As
and
more
one-
people are coming in, you're losing people too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you said something though about capitalism being on its last leg, and I think that simultaneously capitalism is taking on this sort of virus-like quality where it's disguising itself in public interest, like we were talking about the schools, and at the same time there's this complete dismantling of that system happening. I don't know if you guys could speak to that a little.
Well, I'll refer you to my books because I talk about that in What Old Men Know, which is which your listeners or viewers can get by checking my website, www.alifeontherun.com, and that's my other book, Life on the Run, which is basically a history of the city of Detroit and its schools through my own autobiography. I would certainly recommend my books, even though I'm the one that wrote them. I would recommend them. A Life on the Run, Seeking and Safeguarding Social Justice is one of the books. Another book is What Old Men Know, a definitive dictionary, an almanac of advice, which talks about the demise of the capitalistic system. And a third book that I just finished and is now being marketed, called Creative Insubordination, 40 Successful Strategies. And we're in that phase right now. We have to be insubordinate to these corporate crocodiles that are trying to take over our city, our schools, our state, and our country. And with that, I'm gonna close, Kate.
The only thing I would add to that is that we're not anti-capitalist. I'm not anti-capitalist. But the virus of greed has slipped into that body of capitalism, and it's a fatal disease because it eventually will destroy the capitalistic system itself. I'm not against businesses making money and making profit. I have an allergy to them using education as a means to enhance their profitability. Get creative in your area, because without many of the corporations, they have great foundations, they've helped, and they're very charitable. But that virus that sneaks in so often, called greed, changes. It's a conflict here. So we need to be able to peacefully coexist. The educational system, the municipal system, and the corporate system can work together if we can just kill this virus of greed.
You're killing the middle class. You've heard the cliche, the 1% versus the 99%. I think it's more like the 0.0001% now that has the vast majority of the wealth in this country. And that's the kind of thing, that's happened in other empires, and they failed. And another thing to consider, and I know I was closing out, but let me say this one last thing. I'm old enough to remember Hitler. I'm 78 years old, and I was aware. I remember very well pre-World War II America. And I remember the fears that my family had. They were talking about this guy, across the pond, who was democratically elected in a country called the Weimar Republic in Germany. And what he did after he was democratically elected was to take over the press, put emergency managers in the provinces, called them Oberfuhrers, but they were emergency managers, put them in the provinces, and then he took over the schools. And does this sound familiar to anyone?
Yeah.
The next step, was a pretty big step, but the next step was the military. And that was all she wrote.
And that's the danger about having an uneducated populace. If you control the minds of the children and you indoctrinate them where the state becomes their parents and you destroy the families, then you have the children, in the case of the Hitlers and the Nazism, he had the children's minds so entwined that they would turn their own parents in. So if you have an uneducated person that can't read, they can't reason. Reading this, it sounds like a cliche, it's fundamental. If you can read 6th, 7th, 8th grade level, you can almost teach yourself. But the biggest thing about education is not so much vocation, but it's enable you to reason for yourself and say, this is truth, and this is a lie, this doesn't make sense. So if you undermine the basic education system, and you have people making money off the education system, but the children aren't being educated, and they're reading at a 2nd and 3rd grade level because we're not being productive, then you have to listen to what I tell you. And then you don't reason, then you move by emotion rather than intellect when you're voting or when you're making decisions. So just like as we said in the German, the Hitler system, that's what he went after. He went after the young minds and illiteracy then we're in trouble as a country.
Well, you've been listening to John Telford and Arcos Brooks pontificate, and thank you for listening to us.
Yeah.
Thank you for talking. It's really intense stuff. I don't know. I mean, can I ask you one more question about this AmeriCorps crap? Because this is what's really confusing me.
Teach for America is an organization where they bring kids in and they tell them that they're gonna they won't have to pay off their student loans if they contribute some time teaching in an urban setting. Unfortunately, these kids didn't grow up in an urban setting, and they're predominantly Caucasian kids, starry-eyed kids, nice kids, good kids. They're getting run out of the schools. They're getting run out of the EAA schools. They're getting run out of the Detroit public schools. You know, I have to tell you that you just don't go into Detroit Southeastern High School or Detroit Finney High School or any of these other schools. And excuse me, I'm getting phoned here, but anyway, that's what's happening. Hello.
One of the things too you might have to know about the EAA schools and charter
Hey,
schools.
what's cooking?
People who are put in administrative positions
I'm doing
are
okay
not
right
being
now. I'm
required to be
I'm
certified
being interviewed.
in the administration as they were in the public schools. And I think there was even a movement, Dr. Telford verified
that. I
that
talk to you, but I'm
not
doing
requiring
okay.
certification. I'm
doing
certified
okay.
as a science teacher. I'm also certified as an administrator.
Okay.
I spent a lot of money in school to get that certification and get state certification. Many of the charter schools, the principals and administrators, they aren't certified in administration. An entrepreneur comes in, he has the money to start the school, he puts as a principal or assistant principal whomever he wants.
Yeah, a lot of times it's
Certification.
his uncle too or someone.
Yeah.
And a lot of nepotism going on.
And John and I both, we have to have, I have a administrative certification and a central officer certification. I had to
And
get
you've also got
educational specialist degrees
specialist
and
degrees.
doctorate degrees.
I've got a doctorate. Yeah.
And now you're seeing people who are just because I'm the owner of the school, and I point who I want to administrate.
Bring
And they
Aunt
only
Maggie.
Yeah.
or
And many of them don't even know how to
cousin.
even administrate the meat test, which is disgusting.
The kids are suffering, you know, and well, anyway.
Anyways, that was really fun. I mean, well, I
enjoyed
don't know
it.
if fun is the right word, but it was. I have some things to think about. I may want to ask you more questions.
Okay, and I may want to put this on my website. If you
Absolutely.
can send it to my guy,
I'll do
you
it
some.
today. I will send, if you write down the email address, I'll send like
I'll have you send it.
compressed
I'll
web
have it-
version.
I'll
Okay?
have you send it to him.
Well, you got my email address.
And to Keith Owens. And
Owens,
to me,
okay.
Keith Owens is the guy that manages my website and my
Cool.
blog.
Yeah. I like your blog and your website a lot.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, thank him, because he put it together.
Arcos, wonderful.
Mhm.
Absolutely, I've not heard you in this sort of a
Oh,
format.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
wonderful.
Yes, he is. Look who taught him.
Yeah, we know that. Wow,
that's right. Yeah, that's true.
that's right.
I'm working on several books, in fact.
Great.
One of them called The Johns of My Life.
Oh, I'm one of
It's
them.
about 12. I was amazed when I started really tracing the people named John
John
that
Lee.
impacted
John
my
Lee.
life,
John Lee.
including John the Apostle.
Oh, John the Apostle.
Yeah, also.
That's
Same-
we were all named
same
after.
attitude.
You know,
Yeah.
religion comes into the schools, absolutely. And what you said is partly religious and partly school, and it's all the same.
Yeah,
It's
you can't
all the
divide
same. You
yourself
can't
up,
divide
know.
it. You're absolutely right.
How do you separate yourself from the divine, from the creator?
You can't.
I don't think the creator
I don't think you
is a
can.
capitalist or.
No,
I don't think you
I
can.
seriously doubt it.
No, we came from an agrarian society to a capitalistic society. The idea
Right.
was all these resources will be shared equally. And I'm not saying that people should be rewarded according to what they contribute. I'm saying those, I think in terms of gas, the light, electricity, we're paying for water. the people that make the money, they can create that. You know, why should we have to? Why should it be a profit thing? And you know, some people call you a socialist. Well, you know, what's wrong with
I don't think there's anything
socialism?
wrong with
am a
that.
socialist.
What about a mix? What about a mixture of it, John? What about humanness? You know,
That's right.
If we all, you know,
With a small H, yeah.
because I'm for it. I
There
like,
is
you
a
know,
real stigma around that word, and I think it
It
keeps
is.
people from getting a
Yeah.
lot done.
Yeah.
You
You're
have to
right.
bypass
Yeah.
looking out for each other in order to look out for each other.
That's it. That's why I don't like the titles per se, but I look at the behavior.
I've
That
been
tells me
called
what
all
you
this,
are.
socialist, communist, you name it, I've been called it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Oh yeah. Anytime you
You're
don't agree
nothing
with
but a
establishment, you
man
call it
before-
communist.
I was called a Jew too. They called me a Jew
They called him a Jew, right?
in Rochester. They called me a Jew. You know why? I made them take the creches out of the schools.
Made them
Something
take
to
the
do.
what out of the schools?
The creches,
creches.
manger scenes. I made them take them out.
Right.
Oh,
Separation-
good.
Separation of church and state.
Good,
And the
good.
principals were saying
Thank you.
they're a bunch of angry parents. You know, what are taking our manger scene? Well, it's Tulver's fault. I didn't want to take it
You took
out.
the major scene out? That's
Oh, yeah.
disgusting. The little donkey with the cute little.
Yeah, I made them take them out. Yeah, I took them
No.
out.
Wow.
Took them
You
all out.
know, that doesn't bother me as much as what people take out of people's heart.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? What you believe, you know, I'm a Christian, and that's what I believe, but I'm not going to trounce you or kill you because you're not that. I mean, what kind of God is that if I got to kill you to convince you that my way is
If
right?
you're all
You know?
human,
I was
it doesn't
getting,
make
I was getting
difference
some
if you're
bad
Christian or
stories.
whatever.
It wasn't just their anger at me for
Yeah.
hiring the black principals. That was only
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
They were very angry at me because,
For taking the creches out.
well, yeah, but there were Jewish kids who were coming to me crying.
Mhm.
You know that
Right.
they feel that they're not
They were-
they're outsiders. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not right. You know, for any kid to feel that way.
No, that's
So I stepped in.
Good
Yeah.
for you.
And believe me,
I
let
agree.
me tell you, Kate, it was a conflagration. They came after me with vengeance. I mean, demanding that I be fired. In fact, there was a there was a group of black parents, and we didn't have very many black parents in that school district because it was 99% white. But every one of them organized, all 500 of them, because I had about 250 kids, and they had two-parent families, 250 kids in that school district, and the black parents organized to save my job. And then they were joined by the Jewish parents, and then they were joined by a group of liberal white Christian parents called Upward. United Parents Working to Advance Rochester Diversity. And my job was saved because the board president was well, I won't use a bad word, but he wasn't really, a very,
Nice person.
yeah.
Madison Heights also.
Well, Madison Heights, they came
Right.
after me for bringing in kids
Oh,
from
yeah.
Detroit.
And that was
Oh,
balancing
man.
budget. Let's say forget. We
Right,
got
and
to go
they did
bankrupt.
balance the budget.
Yeah, well, I
Right.
did finally get very close to balancing the budget, but I brought in hundreds and hundreds of kids from Detroit, so that we could balance.
And they
balance
came
the
right
budget.
out and said they
And
didn't
there
want
was a
any
town
black
hall
kids.
meeting. There were people just saying right to
When
the
was
cameras.
this?
In
Oh,
Madison
yeah,
Heights.
When?
this
A year
4
ago?
years ago, 2009. Yeah, I was superintendent there.
Your kids were high achievers that you brought in there.
Oh, yeah,
One
oh,
was-
yeah.
One in valedictorian, one.
Valedictorian, salutatorian, president of the student council, state champion in the high championship, the football championship, the basketball championship. I brought coaches in too, but they didn't care about that. In fact, some of the white parents who were Dad's club were mad because the kids I brought in bounced their kids off of starting jobs, and they were very angry with me. And when Channel 2, 4, and 7 came out to that town hall meeting, they were saying right to the cameras, we don't want any more black kids walking down our streets. We got enough already. They actually said those words in the year 2009. This wasn't Birmingham, Alabama, in 1920. This was now. And they're saying we don't want him either because he lives in Detroit. He doesn't live here.
They said that on
You're pointing to
TV.
me.
They said they actually said it on TV somewhere.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
that was,
yeah.
I saw, that
Yeah.
was, that
Oh,
was
yeah.
shocking.
Oh yeah.
What about 2, 4, and 7 now? And Free Press and News?
Well, 2, 4, and 7 are bought and paid for by the Republicans
Yeah.
and by the corporations.
That's
The only media right now that speak honestly are a few commentators like Angela Henderson, who just died,
Yeah.
and me, who I'm on his same station, and they're trying to get me off. And the governor, I'm told, is not happy with some of the things I've done and said, and Michigan Citizen. And a little newspaper called the Detroit Native Sun that I write for. Matter of
Yeah.
fact, Arcos, I want to give you a copy
I
of the
know
Detroit
Ed
Native
Henderson,
Sun.
I think he was on our fraternity brothers too.
Yeah, well, Henderson told the truth. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, and he told the truth.
Yeah. Well,
The native. Where do I get a copy of that? I get the
Native
Michigan
Sun?
Citizen.
John, do you have a copy here?
I got
Is
some
that
here.
is that a weekly or is it a
Monthly.
Okay. Michigan Citizen's a monthly too, right?
Michigan Citizen, is it a monthly or weekly?
Michigan Citizen is a weekly.
That's what I
Okay,
thought.
then I must
Yeah.
have had them confused.
But Native Sun is monthly, so.
Here are some Native Sons. I was keeping these for the Detroit Track Old Timers, because
Do you? Well,
there's an article in here by me about getting the track program back there. They're messing with it again.
And why you say that?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Hester Wheeler called it a civil rights violation that they don't
It is.
that they don't have it. You will find this very here. Here it is, right here.
I mean, you think,
Here,
I mean,
take that home with you.
can you think of track, can you think of the Olympics without track? I mean, that's really what, that's the most exciting thing, the track and field. I mean, that was even the old Olympics, that was it, it wasn't, bocce.
That last diatribe that I just gave. Did you take that? Good. Good.
Yeah, I did.
Because you got me going, and I started. thinking
What about the Native Sun and,
Now, if she's got a copy, just give her a copy.
So
Hmm.
yeah, it's pretty intense.
I think they need to know that 2, 4, and 7 and Free Press and News are blocking you out.
They're bought and paid for.
Right.
So is the Michigan Chronicle. I hate to say it.
What was that again? What'd you say?
2, 4, and 7 are blocking them out.
Channels 2,
and
4, 7, the News,
the Free Press.
and sad to say, the Michigan Chronicle.
And the
Al Dunbar
Chronicle,
be turned
which
over in
used
his
to be
grave.
a black paper, is now blocking them out. They fired him.
Yeah.
He wrote for
Yeah, I
them
wrote
for
for them
nothing.
for 11
Well,
years.
there's less racism in class right now,
What's class?
and it's all classist,
Right.
and
Yeah.
You're
then
right.
classism is still racist.
You're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
But
Got a
it's-
potpourri.
It's a little bit
stuff,
less cut and dry.
Yeah, you really, that's, that's why I say I have to look at individual issues, the cipher, and say, okay, what is this really?
Because if you just make yourself and say, I am a so-and-so, well, you look deep enough at being a so-and-so, you'll see some so-and-sos in there. You say, wait a minute, I got to look at the issues. And again, if you have a major population of literacy, they can't discern. Education teaches you to discern. I don't care, if you can read, you can look and read between the lines. That's the basic thing
They
I
need
want to
to
see
learn to read.
education. I want you to if you can't read, now you got to listen to what somebody else tells you. You got to listen to their
That's right.
commentaries, and they can use a lot of emotion. So anytime you're making decisions purely on emotional arousal, whether it's racism, I have a problem sometimes with saying, every time a black man is arrested, he's been profiled. Like our councilman, oh, you got profiled. You had alcohol, you had drugs in the car, and you violated a traffic violation, man. Come on, just pay the fine and pay up and shut up.
Yeah.
Every time, and
He should have got a real low profile after that.
so then you hurt the whole process of trying to get equality because you're crying wolf. So that when there is a real infraction, people that have a real issue aren't looked at as serious because they say, okay, here we're going against somebody else crying this or that, or trying racism, sexism, or whatever. So that's why I say I look at the issues. I look at the specific issues and try to discern that. But if you get rid of, I'm looking at, we have over 50% in this country. When I did my master's, I was surprised that 55% of adults in Boston were illiterate. 70% of that 55% didn't realize they were illiterate. In Los Angeles, it's about 53% illiteracy. You go to West LA, it's about 85% illiteracy because you have a large Hispanic population that moved in of immigrants who haven't been given education.
Detroit is 48%.
So with that sort of percentages, what happens? You get people who are dependent on a system that doesn't care about them.
Right.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, a system that doesn't do anything to erase previous structural wrongdoings.
right. And they use it to their advantage. Now I can go and manipulate you. I think I used to read, I may be wrong on this, but I remember even like in China, people would go and fight for whoever gave them a bowl of rice. Why? They were illiterate. They had no means of supporting themselves. You feed me, yeah, I'm going to go in and fight for you. I'm not going to argue against you. But not only that, if you go-
Samurai.
yeah,
What was that? Japan, right?
yeah, was it Japan?
Yeah.
So I'm going to die anyway, so let me die with something in my belly or something for my kids. And also, even right now, in in China and Japan, particularly China, if you disagree, in North Korea, if you disagree with your leader, you know, you're killed.
That's right.
You know, and they don't want people to be literate. If you're literate, then you can make decisions. Same as in slavery
Never
in this
wanted
country.
slaves to be taught.
Well, it was illegal to teach a slave to read. Why? Because then I can tell what's north, east, south, and west, and I'm getting out of here. You know, and that's the same thing. That in that sense, education liberates you, liberates your mind to make your own decisions. And that's why I don't really try to tell people. Certainly in the church, I don't tell people how to vote. I'm just saying vote, but vote intelligently, not emotionally.
Amen.
But you can't vote intelligently if you're not literate.
Amen.
That's the whole key.
The limits of our language are the limits of our world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with that,
Well, Kate, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I'll see. So you're not going to be at the D-Room meeting?
I can't be. I've got another meeting.
These meetings, everybody needs to be coming to everybody else's meetings.
That column in there, I'm handing out to the Detroit Track Old Timers
This one
Board.
you keep or you
Yeah.
need
No,
this?
that's yours. That one is yours. That one is yours. I have
Yeah.
enough to give them.
But I mean, everybody's gotta, like, more D-Room people need to go to those NEM meetings, you know?
Mhm.
I
I've
mean,
been to
that,
some of
and
them.
I
I've got
I
my
don't have any place
I've
to
got my
talk,
Nan
but
T-shirt. I have my T-shirt.
I think it's important for lots of people to go.
Well, what we need to do is we need to get to Rachel Maddow and let her know what's happening to the
Fuck
schools.
yeah, Rachel.
And Reverend Bullock, I think, the younger, he has connections with her. I got to get a hold of you. At least a bit on my show. I got to get you on my show too. The stuff you were saying today, you know.
well,
Yeah, it's.
I'm just a little pea in the pod, you know, a little bit of church. I'm used to nobody.
I know,
But that's
but-
where I want to be with the people that are. I could be in a lot of other places, you know, making a lot of
Right.
money, a lot bigger church. But
That's right.
these people need that.
That's right.
That too, you know, the people that are down and out and not as literate. You know, everybody goes to the big places where you got all these titles, but the little places need the titles too.
Who was that kid I had at Finney? I told him I was going to tattle on him because you were one of his kids.
Will you guys sign these?
Oh,
I also have a question. I'm trying to talk to some of these DEG people because I just, you need to document them. But I have like this list of questions I was gonna ask. Will you guys look at these and tell me what you think of them? If they're,
Oh.
because you can't really let them know that you have like
yeah.
a certain mind about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would you
Yes, I bet.
add?
What is it? Is it 18?
It's 18. Yeah, like what would you?
Oh, you just want this side. You didn't need other. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can fill in the rest. Just your names and stuff.
Who's Mr. Rosmark?
He's the PR person for the
Uh-oh.
DEGC, and that's who I have to go to talk to.
What is the DEGC?
Detroit Economic Growth Corporation.
Mhm.
They're
Oh,
responsible
God.
for they're responsible for every one of the downtown development, economic development, Brownsfield. They staff them and they advise people. They're the only place you can go to get subsidies from these boards. It's like it's the epitome of opaque public-private collaboration in like the worst way. So I want to talk to them, but like, do you have any other suggestions for what I should ask them? Like, do these seem like open enough questions without letting them know that I don't have their particular mindset? I'm worried about blowing it.
That's pretty good.
I
Yeah.
think those are good questions.
Yeah. Did that replace? Do you still have the Economic Development Corporation? My dad was
Chamber
on
of
that.
Commerce.
My dad was on that a long
Yeah.
time ago. And I was on the Civic Citizens. Founded by when Coleman Young was there. I was with the Medical Center Department. And they had these different areas around the city, and you made decisions, and you had input in the area you lived in. I was in the Medical Center area, and then it's like getting Kroger's in, getting A&P, those places like that, approving those things. But that all disappeared. You need the address down here. You said?
Yeah.
Cause I'm not living in Detroit now.
Phone number's fine.
Okay.
What's the church address?
Okay.
And
Oh, that's
yourself.
right.
So there's nothing else you would ask them?
There probably is, but I can't,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you gotta remember, my cerebellum is 78 years old.
Well, I'll start there. I just don't want to blow it.
You're not gonna blow it. You're not gonna blow it. You'll face resistance, though. I mean, it's not gonna take them long to figure out. What your
Yeah, you might not get the truth and answers.
It's
but-
hard, man. I haven't figured out how to infiltrate
No,
without.
I never did figure it out. But you know, I'm very
Wow.
disappointed in Mary Sheffield. I voted for her, and you know, her aunt is my friend. Her father's my friend. I mean, God Almighty, she voted to give away that land to the
Oh
billionaire.
God! Ugh.
And I went and talked to the council. I said, please don't do this. You know, please.
Well,
And
or would
I
have.
also begged them not to give away Belle Isle 2 times. I went to them.
But you know, Kevin Orr would have given it away if they had
Oh,
said
he's
no.
going to give everything away that he can. I mean, Kevin Orr's got a conflict of interest like you wouldn't believe. I mean, he's serving Jones Day. He's serving the banks. If he had his way, he'd serve Detroit up on a platter. The Rhodes got in there, thank God, and said, hey, wait a minute.
On the Belle Isle thing, you know, I have mixed feelings. I'm glad in one sense because I paid for state parks with my license just because I don't even go to most of them. I want them kept up. I want to see Belle Isle come up to the level of a Kensington Park.
Could have done it though. We could have kept that ourselves.
And they're starting to fix it up. But they weren't doing it, John. They
No,
gave
they
the stupid
weren't.
city council.
That's
they
right.
went blowing the money. So
Right.
that was some see everything is not wrong. Everything's not right. You know, there was some things they could have been doing if we hadn't stripping the city.
30
the people that's
years,
open,
30 years they turned it over. I'll be 108.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
But they already started working on it and fixing on some things at Belle Isle. I'm planning to have our church picnic there.
we could have.
But they didn't. But
We should have been charging cars. As simple as that. We
Yeah.
just should have been charging cars.
11. I mean, I pay $12 a year. I don't mind that at Kensington. Think about it. Everybody's doing that. Then the people who can't afford it can still get their free.
Let
You can
them walk
across, you
off
can
on a
ride
bicycle, you know,
or go
ride in
public
somebody's car.
transportation.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you got a car, you can't tell me you can afford $12 a year.
Yeah,
To
or,
go
or you
up
can
to
go
the
in your
highway.
cousin's car. You know,
Yeah.
you can take a
And that's
carload
what.
of.
Yeah.
You know, but I was not happy that they gave Belle Isle away and they gave away all that land.
What about the lease? I thought it was a reviewable lease.
Yeah, 30 years.
Yeah.
30 years.
But I thought you reviewed it every 15 years.
Oh no, I think they
I have to look at the.
Yeah.
But
But
still,
anyway-
we still own it. Detroit still owns it, though.
Yeah, yeah.
See, that's the thing you want.
I don't own it unless I live to be 109. You know.
Well,
Yeah,
That's what's
yeah.
confusing though is like sometimes the city really messes up. And
Right.
then they can use that as leverage of, oh,
Right.
you really messed up there. But then they really, and it's like,
Well, the city
Any-
did mess up. The city did mess
You-
but see,
sometimes you can
that's
do
where the
things that
schools and
that
the
put
city
yourself
are
in a
different.
position and people can take advantage of you.
The-
In other
the-
words,
the-
in other words, they aren't without sin. The city council, the city hall, the crooked politicians, that people who were moved by emotion rather than logic, and were looking at the skin color and saying, okay, Kwame, for example, that's all right. Well, I'm like this, John. I don't care if you
I voted for
if-
Kwame
the first time, right?
That's
But I'm
something
but I'm
that-
saying if you steal from me, I don't care what color you are. If you rob me, I don't
Of
care what
course.
color you are.
Yeah.
But see, you got people who are illiterate in that sense, and they're voting emotionally. Well, he's black, so we're gonna keep in him. No, I don't want anybody.
They didn't do it this time.
Taken from me.
And even though there was skullduggery in that mayoral election, with or without the skullduggery,
Mhm.
Duggan would have won.
Yeah.
He would have won.
Well, you got some idiots who still say they will vote for Kwame. I
oh,
was
oh,
You know, that to me, that's
Kwame can
saying
get reelected
result.
tomorrow. In my
And so the more illiterate people you get, you setting up for a Hitler type person. I told people after he was first elected, I said, after about 2 years, I said, this guy has an Idi Amin mentality. I'm talking to black people. He has an Idi Amin mentality. What did Idi Amin do to people in Africa?
executed.
Did he care about black people? So I don't care about your skin color. I want to see what is your heart color. You know,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
care. I don't care. You know, and I told people, Dugan. You asked me. I said I'd go for Dugan.
I voted for him.
You know, not
Never
that I,
expected to, but after I talked to him,
you know,
actually he sent Malik Shabazz, who he recruited me.
Yeah, right.
And I said to Malik, he's wasting his time. He said, well, talk to him anyway. Okay. So he came down to the River House, and we talked for a couple hours.
Mhm.
And I said, that's when I said, well, come on the show and say these things, and we'll see. I didn't think he would, but he did. So then he came out here. We sat out there on that dock, for about 4 hours, just him and me, just he and I. And when the conversation was over, he came out here with Brian Barnhill, and I had some of my guys here, and I said, okay, well, Mike, you and I are going to go out and sit on that dock, and we're going to talk. And we went out there and we sat there for hours.
Wow.
And when we came back, he shook my hand and he said, I want you to be my education liaison. I said, okay, you got me. And I went to some of those programs of his, and he kind of showed me off like a trophy, because I had been tearing him a new you-know-what.
Yeah,
I was running against him because I didn't like him being on that EAA board, and
Yeah.
got him off the EAA board. And then he said right on my show, I denounce the EAA. I do not believe it should be in existence. I got the tape.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's all we can do. Is where we're at. Each person. Let me turn my phone back on. This thing's kept buzzing.
So, will you be at the DRM meeting?
the next one they
The
have.
one after that?
Yeah. Let
Okay.
me know when it is, because they don't meet every Wednesday
I'll
anymore.
send you an email afterwards and let you know
Okay.
when it is.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be out of town, like I said, from Thursday through the 1st of March.
I'm going to be at the NAACP office at that very same time, handing out these,
Oh,
because we've got to plan our strategy to get that track program restored.
Thanks so much for taking some time today. I really
Always,
enjoyed
hey,
talking to you guys.
This is what we do.
Yeah, I can tell.
This is what we do.
If you think of anyone I should talk to, let me know.
Well, Tom Stevens is one guy you should talk to.
Who's that?
He'll be at the DRAM meeting.
Cool.
Definitely talk to Tom Stevens.
I will.
The stuff he writes is brilliant
mm.
and knowledgeable, and he's a real gadfly to the emergency manager of the city.
Mm.
Man.
He's an attorney, Tom Stevens.
Ooh, yeah.
That's
We need more of those.
He's the smart. Well, don't quote me, because there are a lot of smart people in there, but he is the most knowledgeable and smartest of them all, in my view. Just a young fellow. Well, to me, he's a young fellow. He's almost 50. So.
I'm so sorry to hear about your ribs.
Oh, it wasn't my ribs, it was my vertebrae.
Oh,
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I cracked two vertebrae.
will they heal?
Yeah, yeah, but it'll take time and it'll
That's
hurt all
touchy
the time.
area. Was it lower sacral?
It's right in the middle.
Oh,
Right in the middle. I came down hard on the corner of a cement step.
This is really beautiful.
Oh, you see in the
it
summer.
is. Yeah, this is gorgeous. This is pretty. I mean, looking out the lake frozen,
Yeah.
makes me want to put a taste in my mouth. I'm a fisherman for perch and walleye.
All right.
I see that ice,
All
I
right.
want to be out there drilling a hole and catching some walleye, some bass.
Anytime you want to, come on out. You know, you don't have to have a
I'm too
license to fish
cold-blooded.
here because I own the place, you know. So.
Yeah,
What are
yeah.
your ties to Birmingham?
Oh, that's why I started. I'm retired, so I substitute teaching in Birmingham. I deal with the LRC kids.
Oh.
And
Oh,
well, I set
cool.
up wherever they want me to, but that's where mostly they love me and I love them. So whenever
Yeah, man.
somebody's out in the LRC program, they call me to
Yeah.
come out there.
I grew up in Birmingham.
Hmm. You say what?
I grew up there.
Well, you know, and
That's
I
all
got
right.
this because I do job coaching.
We
for the kids.
understand. I grew up on 16th Street in McGraw, and
Yeah.
you grew up in St. Clair.
That's
Yeah.
right.
It ain't Birmingham. I mean, you know what? You gotta.
I love it.
You gotta read at least my autobiography. You
I'd
gotta,
like to. I really
yeah.
like to.
You know, I'm gonna loan you a copy.
That would be so wonderful.
I think I got one in there.
Thank you.
So
You know,
police
these books are
department-
not mine. They belong to the publisher.
Police department gave this to me because
Oh,
a
nice.
job coach. We go with the autistic and Down syndrome kids. We're trying to it's post school program and post secondary school, and we take them to different spots and municipal building and everybody in Birmingham is very supportive of our kids. So we take them down there. We have them clean the police station and stuff
Oh,
like that. So
cool.
I'll be teaching them the skills. So they give us a hat and we get a shirt, something like that.
Actually, do you have that one?
Yeah, remember I won that at the raffle when.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
What
That's,
old men know.
yeah. This is
A
the
Life on the
this,
Run?
This is grab that big one. That's
All right.
my autobiography.
It's R rated.
Yeah, it's R-rated.
That's all right. I can handle that.
It is R-rated.
I'm gonna read this.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
As a matter of fact, on the back, you know, that was
Jeffrey
That's my
Feiger.
second wife right there.
Oh,
This is my current wife right here.
I like her.
Yeah, she's a good lady.
Yeah.
She's
absolutely.
pretty.
Yeah, she is.
Cool.
So we go to Einstein, we go to Myers, and job coaching. I just maybe
That's
sell a
really
couple of days a
cool.
week. That's about it because I have a full-time job at home.
School principal. I was going to make him lead principal, and I had an idea for saving money. I was going to have select principals leading other principals and give them a stipend for doing that. That was part of my very extensive plan, and he was a big part of my plan. But that I was never allowed to you know, that law that kicked in. That law that kicked in, that unlawful law. We're still dealing with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's so frustrating.
Yeah. And
And now I got this damn busted back, you know, and hobbling around on a damn cane.
it's time to slow down. We did, you know,
I'm full of aspirin right now.
you've done all you can do, then you have a clear conscience. You know.
That's
And
right. I can look in the mirror.
All I can do is what I can do.
Yeah, we can definitely look in the mirror, man,
Mhm.
because we've done everything right.
Yeah.
At least professionally. I didn't do everything right personally. I gotta admit.
Let me write down my phone number. If either of you guys need anything, I mean, you both sound
I
like
got
you're
all your information.
extenuate.
Give it to
You
him.
know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You got a
I'll
card?
write that down.
Okay,
And
that'd
if
be
you
great.
if you and your wife need anything, you need an errand run or a,
Well, that's very nice of you, Kate.
I'm happy to pitch in. It's not an easy
My wife,
winter.
where did she go? She disappeared.
Head.
Are those artificial admix with real in or those?
No, that's gas.
Here we go.
Yeah, well, it's warm. Yeah, none of that is warm. Okay.
That's 303, not 313. Colorado number.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I used to live in Colorado.
Oh,
Here,
okay.
let me sign that thing to you, Hick.
Aw,
Yeah.
you're so kind. This is awesome. Thank you. I collect books, so that's really an honor to have. Look at that fog. Sort of reminds me of Mackinac.
Yeah, I love Birmingham. I like downtown because it reminds me a lot of Carmel, California. There.
Yeah.
But if before we just, I guess, 5, 6 years, we were in Beverly Hills. In high school. My girls graduated from Groves,
Oh,
and my
Cool.
one son graduated from Southfield High. That's
cool.
my youngest is
Thank you.
34 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 30, so.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
feel
Okay.
30, can you imagine that?
Yeah.
I have a 40-year-old daughter, a 47-year-old son,
Oh
and
my
this
God.
kid is 30.
Yeah.
Be my granddaughter.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That is 33.
She could be my granddaughter. She's young enough to be my granddaughter.
33.
Think
Yeah.
about that for a minute.
My oldest
True.
son's 44. Well, yeah, he's just turned 44.
My hair's
He's
all
on
messed
LA.
up too, isn't it? You filled me with my hair messed up.
No, you look good.
Am I
And you
okay?
don't look
I
78.
never brush my hair. Oh well. She usually says, "You didn't brush your hair." You know, she's always telling me. Today she didn't do it for some reason, so I didn't brush it.
Did you go to see home or anything? You said you
I
were
went-
raised in Birmingham or you just moved?
I went to Country Day.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh, wow.
All right, yeah. The lower
Was
middle
that
and
when
upper
Shane
Country Day.
Battier was playing? It must have been.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
a basketball player.
Well, Shane
Country Day,
Battier, you know, when he was just a little kid, he used to come over to George Blaney's house.
Mm-hmm.
Shane Battier.
Well, what's the? You know what I'm talking about? They played basketball.
For who?
For you in the Fab Five. He played Country Day out there on Lasser, isn't that Lasser
Yeah,
Country
yeah.
Day High School?
Mhm.
Not Gibson. Oh shoot, doggone it! He played for the Fab Five. He was a star, and he went on.
Chris Webber.
Yeah, Webber.
Oh, Chris Webber.
Yeah. He went to a friend of mine's church for him. Yeah.
Well, you know, I was, you know, now that we're talking about athletics, this guy was a quarter miler, I was a quarter miler. And that is the toughest race there
It
is.
is a hard race.
Yeah.
I ran it, and I was not good. I was a good half miler, but
Yeah.
I was not a good quarter miler.
Well, I
I
was.
could not
I
sprint
ran
that
Olympic
long.
champion
You
for a
can't.
while.
You can't do it without sprinting. But you
Yeah,
gotta
yeah,
sprint
right.
a
Yeah,
long
that half
time.
mile that's quite a challenging race too. Plus, I'm a violinist. He's a violinist.
Yeah, we're both violinists.
And I studied opera in college. I was
Yeah.
pre-medicine, but I like
Yeah.
music,
Yeah.
so I did opera and I did some acting. My
Ah.
daughter and son, in fact, my son's like a playwright and theater manager in L.A., and my daughter was an aspiring actress, you know. And she went to Wayne State, so she was in Kwame River. You all never get to see Sharon and Kwame, did you? Did you
No.
see Kwame River 1 and 2?
No, I didn't get to see that. I didn't get to see that one, but I saw others.
Been doing some research on Plowshares Theater. Have you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, at one time or another.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I want to know more
Yeah.
about that. Actually,
You don't
Listen,
remember Charlie Jenkins. You remember Charlie Jenkins.
Mhm.
You're,
Oh, yeah.
you're young enough. I mean, old. You remember Charlie Jenkins. I outran Charlie Jenkins. He was Olympic.